Well, trike is back. That one there really ticked me off. I don't know, there's something in the engine to do with the starter clutch, which I guess we'll have to fix. But I need something going immediately, and last I checked, I believed I diagnosed this engine with low compression. So it might have something to do with valves. It might not. And I realized I took the stator out of here and I put it onto that. Now you might notice that's a 50cc. That over there is a 150cc. So, obviously the stator is not going to work. Well, it's DC powered, so you don't need the primary coil. But you do need the trigger wire, and the trigger wire went bad, I think, because we're not getting any spark out of that engine over there. So now we're over here, kind of on a whim. I'd like to get both of these going, that for the summer and this for the winter. And as you can see, I've taken all these plastics off and all this stuff. The wiring is decrepit. The brakes are also decrepit. So, thought occurs, we could take the front end of this trike and mount it to that. But why do that when you can do 150 swap? We just so happen to have spare 150. But that'll be for another video, because I've also got a 110 I might want to swap in here with manual gearing. And I think this thing will be real fun with manual gears. Anyways, so today I'm just going to do a little walk around about these trikes, because I've noticed there's not a lot of information on them. As in, there's zero information. So, I guess we're gonna kind of go with what this thing is and what all it does, and if you even own one, what all to do with these. Well, this is and this is gonna sound hilarious, a Dong Feng. Sunny is their name that they try to go by. It's a Sunny DFK50. That's what it is. And I think the idea that they were trying to go for was like a cheap, budget, round-the-block Can-Am. For you to take, like, around the neighborhoods, that sort of stuff. And it's very good for that. It's really good at that. I've driven it. I've driven it on major roadways, all sorts of stuff. And it's very fun for that. The only problem is when these things came out, they had a lot of death wobble. You might have to pardon me if you hear the wind here, but they had a whole bunch of death wobble when they came out after a certain amount of speed. Oh yeah, by the way, there were 3 different types of these. You had ones just like that scooter. You had the 300, the 200, and the 50. That's kind of built like the 200, hence why I bought it, so we can do a front end swap. But, I kind of like this thing the way that it is, and I think I'm going to put a custom front end on that one. So, yeah. Anyways, back to topic. The 50 is obviously the smallest of its brethren. You have the 300, which I'm not quite sure what engine that one uses. Then you had the 200, which either used a 172cc 150, or it used the kind of later model 200cc. The problems with those when they came out of the factory was the engine mounts would break. because the engine made just too much power on a heavy chassis. At least that's what I think. I'm not saying it was no 1,000 horsepower or anything. I'm just simply saying that the frame couldn't cope well with the engine, and they like to break engine mounts. Best way to fix it is to add different engine mounts. On the 50 like this, shoot, don't even have to worry about it. And the 150 models, you don't have to worry about it. Mostly just where the engine's located, lack of power, all that stuff. These were actually not a 50cc when they came out. These are actually a 64 or 72. The only way you could have gotten a 50cc is if the engine's been replaced. Now, it's branded as a 50cc for legal purposes, because in most states here, when they came over here in the US, these things were badged as 50s because then you don't need a tag, you don't need a title, you don't need insurance, and you definitely don't need a license to drive them. But they also had to restrict these things at 30 miles per hour, 50 cc's worth of power. So, yeah. Just, there was kind of a law that, well, China knew that us fellas didn't like to stay in the slow lane. So these mostly came out of the 72, not just because they loved us. No, they hated us. Hence why I'm working on it. They also did it because these actually have extra weight and they actually need the extra power to move the extra weight. So, hence why we might be doing the 150 swap. I mean, it's fast. I can get up to about 40 miles per hour on it, unrestricted. But for what it is, it's kind of, yeah. So, yeah. But something you might experience the problems with on these is, the loud pipe phone. There he goes. Something you might experience with these is as you're driving, your wheel wants to wobble like this number. And it can be very nerve-wracking, especially when you're going around a tight corner or you're just going straight. What that is that your wheel is actually like this number. So when these things came out the factory, it's kind of like, I guess, General Electric in World War II. You know, you're producing household items, and the next thing you know, you're producing a machine gun or whatever the heck they made. That isn't a household item. The same thing kind of happened here, except there was no quality control. And the General Electric built gun screamed tons of freedom. This did not. So, you took people that work on motorcycles daily, and you essentially put a car front end on it and hoped that they'd know how to put it together. They did not. So a lot of these people, what they did was they tossed the wheels on, they assumed it was straight, and sent it on its merry way. Well, it's got motorcycle tires, for one. That already is bad. You could put a car tire on it, probably run a lot better, but it didn't. So, when you go down the road, the guy, remember, you put the wheel on, it looks straight like this, but on the other side, they're actually slightly towed in. So he's got it straight, this is towed in, built for cornering. And now you have two different wheels, they're trying to go in the two different directions. Hence where you get death wobble. Well, death shimmy. Death wobble is a little different. I actually have it on this one. That's because I've got 20-year-old tires, no stabilizers, none of that. I was running a stabilizer, and then I hit a curb at 30, and it destroyed it, and I haven't added it back on since. I figured this would make a great video on that. So, the design for this, I do believe, is based off of like a 110 four-wheeler. I think that's what they did. You've got a standard Harbor Freight hinge right here, or bearing. And then you've got a handmade, yep, that's the unfortunate bit, handmade pivoting block right here, connected to 2 shocks. And you might notice something's missing here. Well, if you're watching this video, you probably know nothing about these, and you might be wondering yourself what's missing here. There was this thing called tilt lock. Tilt lock, what is tilt lock? Well, you might notice as you go down a corner, it tilts. Guess what? Tilt lock, now picture this, right? It's gonna be the most coolest thing you've ever heard. Keeps it upright. And ours doesn't do that. Tilt lock was only meant to be used for low speeds and whatnot. And the reason why they don't make this particular model anymore in this style of platform is simply because, how do I put this? People wanted to drive with the tilt lock on, and these did not have a wide enough wheelbase like a Can-Am to withstand going around a corner at 30, and these things would tip over and kill somebody. Not really. It injured them, but pretty sure hardly anybody died. And to avoid a lawsuit, they added a beeper. Let me find that case. I might have to fight the waspers. Easy wasps. I got a wasp nest on the roof. I'm planning on eradicating them, but I'm gotta let that eviction notice cool down, you know. Right here, you might, if you own one of these, you might be wondering, what is that red light there for? That is your tilt lock alert. They installed this later on. This is an early model. They didn't install it on this one. This is an early on system dedicated to alerting users, hey, you're still in tilt lock. If you go around a corner, you're gonna tip over. And it was pretty good. But still, the death wobble and stuff like that really just didn't bode well with owners, with scooter owners. So, you know, at that point, everybody was scared out of their minds to drive them, and honestly, I don't blame them. But I've driven this particular unit, and I adjusted, you adjust these tie rod ends, for those wondering. You adjust this tie rod in, and it brings the wheel outward. And you adjust it out, and it brings the wheel inward. Toe out, toe in. And you kind of want to do this with this thing straight as that. You also want to go about and do your checks. It's like if this thing has excessive amounts of play, ours has it up here a little bit, but that's to be expected from a 20-year-old unit. Well, if this all woggles around, the problem is you got bad bearings. Get yourself some, or not bad bearings, you got bad bushings. You need yourself some bushings. Here, I do not know where to replace these spindles. I've looked on Amazon, eBay. I can kind of find where you can replace them. They look to be a four-wheeler unit or a go-kart style, but I'm pretty sure these are just the through bolt with no bearing, so they will wallow out. Shocks are standard scooter shocks. You can find them anywhere. Brush bar, can't tell you anything. That's custom made. This channel here, you can't find that anywhere. Can't find the frame or anything like that. Brake lines are for four-wheelers. Get a proportioning valve right here. You can find that for a standard go-kart or four-wheeler. Brake discs. This is going to be the hard part. I'm pretty sure these are rear brake discs. Right here. Yep. With your standard brake caliper for maintenance, guys. Figured I'd tell you that. Rims. You might notice these rims look weird. These rims are off of a Piaggio scooter. That's kind of bad news because these Payago rims go about $500 a piece. I can't find any other rim with this leg pattern. Now, if anybody knows anything about finding a rim with this leg pattern, please let me know. And again, we got the same thing on the other side. Now, rest of the information on this, well, just a standard scooter. Yep. Quite literally, they just took a normal scooter, threw 2 front wheels on it, called her good. So, yeah. We might be a bit of a pickle on that one. Now, I know some of you might have wanted to see the front end of this cut off of this ugly thing and put onto that beautiful thing over there. Well, there's a couple problems with that. These frames do match up, but yeah, still difficult. Something else to note was these did not come with kickstart originally. I added the kickstart. Yes, I know it's off. That's because I broke it, and I broke it in the weirdest way possible. Rim in the back. I was going to try and take that brand new tire and rim and put it on this. Yeah, I can't do that. Whoops. Carburetor, this thing actually had something very surprising before I yanked it off. It had a standard style CVK carb. Now you might be confused. Well, aren't the ones off Amazon CVK? No. Those are CVK reproductions I should add, and they have an 18mm bore. The one that was on this one had an authentic 21mm bore, and I'm pretty sure it was an old style CVK, like near the 80s format. Not any reproduction or any new ones being sold online. I already checked, which is pretty cool. I might try to rebuild it. I think it'd be pretty good on this thing with some extra CFM flowing through it. Right now it's just got the standard 16, 18 mil carb. Really, you don't really need to upgrade those. I do plan on taking this engine up to 100 cc's eventually with the Tida build and yanking the carb off of that and putting on that. So, with all of the facts being said about these things, I guess, let us dig in. You might notice there's some pieces missing, and that's just because it was like that when I took it apart. Up here, you're going to have standard 3 wires here. Now I'm going to add, this wiring harness has been cut up. All sorts of stuff has been done to it. It is not a standard harness. This kind of has a half and half if you've seen my video on the weld and wiring. So with that, we're going to dig in. I wish I could help y'all. You can count where all the screws go in. Got one in the center, one over here, and 2 up there. This is going to sit up here. So we're going to unclip this. And my goal today is to just yank the wiring harness out. Prepare for a new wiring harness. With that, you're going to set this over to the side. And I'm going to get down in here, and we're going to show you a little bit more about what makes these trikes a trike. Step 1, flip seal. Dink. Step 2, you're going to remove this screw right here, this screw right here, and you're going to want to use a JDM screwdriver. You use anything else, you will strip these screws, and you will hate the rest of your 3 hours of ripping out the same screw. Alright, you got that panel unequipped. Oh boy. Now if that cover comes off, if you ever want to decorate your emblem or anything like that, those 3 bolts come off, that emblem pops out, you can repaint it however you wish. Now we're into the nitty gritty. Yeah, it's been rewired so many times, it's not even funny. So, for starters, we're gonna rip that out. Drop all this out. Nope. Get that out. Whoops, that's gotta hurt. All right, now we're into it. This is where I wish I'd brought my knife. This is your alarm system. It blares at about 110 decibels. You want to make sure your battery is disconnected before you commit to this carnage. Thank you. These, in case you're curious on your alarm systems, go to your lights, I do believe. Nope, wrong. These go to your horn. I'm a silly goose. And this little thing here is your antenna, right here, that little black wire. Hard spot. Now, to yank out the rest of this is going to be a challenge. This was originally a custom harness I made, and somebody all chopped it up. Let's actually get some tools on the subject. All right. Hopefully we got her unscrewed now. This is going to be your horn, and I think your rectifier grounding plate. But we're kind of changing up this entire system, so we kind of really don't need any of that. Just like we're dropping the speedometer cable, all that, I'm rolling with GPS. It's not the most reliable thing in the world, but it's cheaper, and I got a cool gauge. It's really probably going to break in like 3 weeks, but for right now, it'll work. And I'm all about, I like the older stuff, don't get me wrong, but it is, for these things, these speedometers are never really accurate. That was actually tested. And these things were pretty much the most inaccurate you could get in terms of these speedometers. Yeah, if you break your speedometer in half, you can just pull it right out. Always measure that. I don't know what the heck for. I guess I can measure for brake line. But anyways. Then we look way down in here, and you get to see all the action happen on these trikes. So, obviously you got your bolt-in handlebars, which are, well, bolt-in. Runs down your bearing tube, and it goes to this coupler right here. Now you might notice, well, Phoenix, it looks a little terrible. That's because it is. On my way home, I was driving and went a little too quick around like a 15-mile-per-hour corner. Basically, all the speed this thing had. Hit the curb, tweaked my handlebars, and my handlebars are basically sideways while the wheels are straight. So I took it down to the neighbor, borrowed his welder. We welded the back side completely up, welded this, welded that, welded that, welded that. Stuck a safety pin through. And then on top of that, we welded the nuts and all that. I might weld it up a little more just to make sure it is perfectly welded. But problem with this is this was a main failure point on almost all trikes. They ran this type of coupler. Problem with this is you can no longer find this coupler because it was so unreliable. This is actually a tie rod coupler. That's what this is. They no longer make them. They're pretty dangerous. Iraq proved why. It was really sloppy before then, and I've heard horror stories where they just randomly stripped out on people they couldn't steer, and so I just stuck all that stuff in it. Made sure that thing wouldn't come back apart again. And basically I just took a standard tube thing here, and you can see where they spot welded the spline piece. And then on top of that, they just put this here. Instead of running it into D channel like they should have done, they put it in another spline shaft off of like a 110 four-wheeler, I would say. And then they ran it down into that steering arm down there configuration, which in turn runs right here, which in turn bolts to a bearing. I'm pretty sure this is off of a lawnmower. And yeah, that's how you get your steering. Pretty nifty, huh? Pretty ingenious. Yeah, if you saw that plastic fall off, you probably gotta figure out why I'm about to rip all these plastics off. They are not the best. And based on our donor vehicle, we might be able to install all my gadgets from that thing onto this thing. I love that. Oh, another thing on these trikes. Can't express this enough. This came off of that. That's why it's got the mirror attachment. But I had to drill and retap this because the mirrors that were on it were 8mm. Kind of hard to find in my area. They're really chintzy and they break and all that. And these were cross-threaded, so just take you a drill it down, retap it with a 1.5 thread pattern, I think is what they call them. 10mm or 12. 12 is also more common. And then you can just run down any snazzy mirror off the Amazon you want to. Yeah, I wish that one had that. But enough, I digress. Back to what we were talking about. Yeah, these were pretty much what makes a trike a trike. You can kind of see, I just noticed it. If you look right up in there, you can find the TIG wire they use. That's pretty funny. But yeah, my plan was to cut this whole assembly out and transfer it, but I'm like, honestly, it's good for low speed and fun in the wintertime. Why do that when you can make your own? And so I will be keeping this fuse box out of my Crown Vic. Miss that old car. Great cop car that thing was, even though it wasn't a cop car. If you ever watch this, shoot your favorite car down below. Yeah, that goes wee. And now we're into the real nitty-gritty. And now we're into the less nitty-gritty. If I knew where my cutting pliers were, I'd say we'd cut that off. Got one in here? No? Okay. Could try and yank it all up through there and pray we don't rip the whole scooter in half. Just unbolted. It is unbolted. Why? Oh, I unbolted it. Sorry, I'm realizing my reconnaissance stupidity. Huh. This might be interesting. Oh yeah, I know I keep bouncing back and forth. My apologies. Fenders. A lot of you guys might have been talking about, hey, what about fenders? You can't find them. You just can't. And if you can, they're $400. I welded me up some which literally fell off while driving. They were made out of this Sheen seat tin metal. Let me find in my stash here. I gotta get rid of all of this. But you can see where I welded my fenders, and they just fell right apart. You can see how. Actually, I'm gonna pull this out. Stop being lazy. You can see where that thing fell right apart. Broke off and flew down the street at Mock Jesus. And yeah, I cut these out of an old bucket thinking they'd look kind of cool, you know, painted up. Because I mostly work with what I have. So, yeah, it didn't do that. They just fell right off. So I'm keeping those as a template. But, yeah, you can't find them. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell y'all where to find them, but you can't. Trying to think of what else we could nab them for. Because we don't really need this wiring harness. Yeah, you see, I was right. I knew I rebolted that somewhere else. Yeah, why is it bolted to the inner fender? Or to the inner, what do you call this? Frunk? Gib. Thank you. Yeah, I ain't coming out. I figured we could just cut it out and redo it all. No. It's never that easy. Well, the good news is, where there's a screwdriver, there's a way to do some sketch. See, that's what I was talking about right there. See how this screw's stripped? Yeah, I wonder how that happened. Used a standard screwdriver one day and I accidentally stripped it. Well, mate, nothing our Hulk of arms can't fix. But I really like this trike. I really like to see it road legal again. They have a new modern day trike that is a motorcycle now. It's the motorcycle platform. That if you got a old one in your backyard that, well, is garbage, plastic's broken, you can't fix it, I'll be happy to take it off your hands for the right deal. Just ask for the Gmail down below. I think they're called Rikers, Spiders, whatever. But they're a Chinese made, they're not a Can-Am. I don't like Can-Ams. Name brand always has a high price tag. And honestly, I like these things. They're cheap. You can always tinker on them. And I like to daily drive them. Because there's some freedom tied behind it, you know? You at the mercy of the road, I guess. Maybe I'm just delusional. Oh, I forgot about this part. I broke the key in that old ignition. Well, poop. I was gonna say, it was as simple as unbolting that and that, but let me figure out how to get this glove box open. Okay, that was disastrous. So, break your key so you can't unlock your glove box, and then you rip it off like the Hulk, break your glove box door. It'll come right out, I guarantee it. So, with that bolt, you have a bolt right here. You're gonna unscrew that, pop it right off. Huh, it's still attached. It is. That's fine. Now, we are down here. Now, if your scooter is not as dry rotted as mine, this might be difficult. But you're gonna do like I just did, unscrew these, unbolt them on one side, lift it. Be very, very careful. These are very brittle plastics. You do not want to break them. I cannot iterate that enough. So if you were tinkering on yours and you said, oh, he said pull it, and it broke, well, I warned you. The right way would be to take it completely off, but half of our screws are stripped. So yeah. And you can start to see now why we want all this wiring out. Just all junk, all tape and office wire or office tape and I guess office wire. Do offices have wires? Probably. Alright. Yeah. I wonder who's the idiot that duct taped this. Oh, hey, he's talking. Why did I do this to myself? Oh, I forgot to aim the camera. Now, a lot of you are probably yelling at the screen, hurry up, hurry up. Oh, get to it. Well, this is why I can't just get to it. You know, might be a guy out there. You know, a lot of them are saying, oh, it's easy as on TV. No, nobody says that, but you get my point. Trying to make this seem like this is what you encounter out in the wild. You know, all scooters are brand new. This one, hey, exhaust pipe is not even bolted up. All right, we're gonna disconnect that. That was our tail lights. The tail light plug is gonna be hidden way up in here. See, we gotta replace all that. Next, we're gonna pull our fuel cylinder. And then I get to show you all something that encounters with a lot of these scooters. Don't be quick to buy parts, okay? Actually diagnose them. Because you're going to buy a ton of parts and then it's never going to be fixed. Here is case in point. Right here, you see that? Let's see if the camera will focus. Cracked wires. Now I've been having this issue where, I mean, the bulb is missing now, but I would turn them on and both blinkers would blink. Yeah, but it was only 50-50. I had to be rounding a corner at like Mach, who knows. And yeah, I had to be going really fast to make it do that. And I'd replace the bulb, I'd replace grounds, all that. Even though my mechanical know-how was telling me, no, don't do such thing. Well, guess I should have done such thing. Or not done such thing. And it turned out to be these wires. Yeah. Busted. And so, properly diagnose these things. Oh yeah. I actually like this. For once I have a vehicle that red is the hot cable and black is the ground. Usually it's the opposite and I accidentally burn the thing down. But you know, when you replace them with the right wire. For the next guy, please. Unless you have to, in which case I understand. All right, what else we got attached? Oh, our coil. Well, we just broke that off. That's fine. These are usually all crumbling apart. It's kind of sad to see it in this condition. All right. So, Oh, got this hook down here. And if you're swapping wiring harnesses, I do want to add, you can pull as hard as you want because you don't need this. But if you're not, regardless, don't even just randomly pull. Actually look at your wiring. Like, for example, right down there, I just pulled that wire right out. It's still gonna work, but you might not like that, and it might not work on yours. So, yeah, that's a ground. Kind of want to keep that. Yank. So, I got tape all over my shoes. Why? There. That's not supposed to look like that. It's supposed to be all pretty much one rope. We've got 5 different splices and cut-ins, and it's just all very horrible. Now, we got that taken care of. We're gonna keep this. That's our throttle. This is our brake. Gee, my 6s will just never have brakes around here. Back here, something we're gonna shed light on is the cinder. These cinders always go bad. As you might notice, this down here, it is just covered in rust. And this line, you can start to see is delaminating. Let me tell you what this line here is, this clear line. Don't run it on any vehicle. Just don't. And I'm going to tell you why. This is basically what your kitchen sink has under it. It's pretty much all that is. You might be saying, oh, that's scooter line. No, that's they have 2 different lines. One is made from the stuff of kitchens, and like this, and the other one's actually steel braided. But I don't like the idea of the steel braided because of that. You see that? It ain't leaking right now, but it will. Once this starts leaking, you gotta hit your brakes. What are you gonna do whenever this line here explodes? Yeah. You're gonna crash into the car in front of you and you're gonna die. Yeah. So if your hose is delaminating like that, replace it. If you ever need help replacing it, just let me know. I'll help. I'll see what I can do for you. I'll help you. We're gonna take this. That's our old speedometer cable. And that is why they're so unreliable. But yeah, I think we got her about done. I'm actually, and I know this is gonna sound crazy, I'm actually gonna put this thing right back together and jam it right back over there in that corner where it was. Hey, little kitty cat, what you doing? Cat's gone. Anyways, and yeah, we're gonna see how all this goes later, because I'm tired. I want to go home. I want to eat. I'm sure y'all are bored. So, that's been a big minute of yanking out wires, and hopefully it wasn't a waste of time for a lot of you. I know a lot of guys are curious about these trikes. I really don't The problem is they're one-offs, so it's really hard to tell. I do a lot of one-off stuff around here, and I do some fabrication, so that helps. Plastics, I do know a guy who's been wondering about plastics on our forum. You see how it says sunny here? This is the same from where my hand is back. It's the same as any other 50cc scooter. Same thing with the 150s. From here back, same thing as any 150 or 150 trike. 200s, 300s, same thing. Long as it's known to have a 300 in it, kind of a rule of thumb, the plastics will interchange. For your 150s, a tank 150 will work. For these, even a 50cc Tao will work, which is really going to blow your friend's mind when you find out that they have a 50cc Tao that has 2 wheels in the front and can do 45. So, yeah, that's just to help a little bit. And again, drivetrain, all this stuff, same thing as any other scooter that is associated with it. Your 300's a little different because those are put in go-karts for a reason, because they kind of break the mounts. And the 200's are also kind of iffy, depending if it has the 172 branded as a 150 or not. It's kind of iffy there. Just shoot your questions. A lot of times I respond pretty quick. If once I get the editing, I'll just start posting my email at the end of all of these, and y'all can feel free to send your emails. And yeah, so we can have all this fun stuff, all your fun projects done all the time, 24/7. And you can be back and riding on the road again if you're the guy like me who likes to drive scooters. Yeah, I actually sold all my rigs for scooters, believe it or not. And so I'm still fixing them. I've already poured a couple grand in that blue one over there, right there. And I've already poured like 500 into this one. Once I pour something above its value, I don't get rid of it. So until it's fixed. We're kind of real tryhards around here. I wish we weren't, but we are. So, yeah. So, also, any comments would be nice. If y'all want to see this front end put on that scooter over there, let me know. I kind of like the tadpole for what it is. That's kind of what I bought it for. I was originally just going to swap the front end from this to that, but you know, I'm really starting to like this style. You know, if I do keep this frame and I can get a title for it. I mean, I already have one, but you got to update it. Why is it always the loudest diesel? Anyways, gonna plan on chopping this here out, moving this part forward, putting a fixed wheel in the back. Doing something kind of Frankensteinish with this build. Chopping this off, running like a motorcycle style handlebar, that sort of thing. That's just some future plans I've had for it. I don't really know what to do with it as far as customization. Right now, I'm just worried about getting it driving, getting it going, and that's all I care about. But eventually, I did get this to build like a dream Frankenstein build. I kind of want to use that one right there, that one there, but what can I say? it's kind of a challenge because we're dealing with cutting off the front end, and you really need the front end aligned properly, and I don't have the tools for that. Aligning up the rear end is really easy. Aligning the front ends is kind of finicky. So yeah. But anyways, I'm gonna quit my yapping and throw this thing right back together. I'm not gonna film that because I do have a spare parts scooter coming, where we're going to focus on ripping all of this new old stuff off, and we're gonna be putting on new stuff back on it, hopefully. And I will be talking about how to modify to fix these plastics. That's going to be your big crunch right there. Shouldn't be too hard. Again, comment, like, subscribe. Tell me what you think on the whole Sunny project, and we'll hop right back to it.